Red Bull has a very tough decision to make ahead of the Japanese GP. Who is going to be Verstappen's teammate? As of now, it seems like the options have narrowed down to a swap between the most obvious choice, Tsunoda and Lawson. But on the other hand, Colapinto has entered the chat to join Red Bull's family. With this in mind, can we see a massive shake-up on the grid? And more importantly, who will take the second seat in Red Bull, the one that is perceived more as a curse than a blessing at this point? The situation in Red Bull has evolved a lot after the first two races of the season. Liam Lawson has qualified P18, P20 and P20 in the three qualifying sessions that we've had so far, two for the main race event, while one was for the sprint race in China. On top of that, in China, three drivers ahead of him were disqualified and he still finished outside of the points. This is why the alarms have been ringing in the Milton Keynes based squad, as they are now ready to think outside the box and to bring another driver in his place. Be that as it may, it seems like a potential swap between Tsunoda and Lawson is the most likely scenario, because the Japanese driver has been perceived as the one who got robbed in the promotion last year. On top of that, he's been delivering extraordinarily good results for Racing Bulls in the first two races of the season, qualifying P5 in Melbourne and finishing P6 in the sprint race in China. Had it not been for the miserable tactics of his team, he could have easily had a lot more points than what he does right now. But sometimes the situation is what it is and you've just got to accept it. Tsunoda was asked as to whether or not he feels ready for the challenge of being Max's teammate as soon as Japan, which would see Red Bull break another infamous record, have a driver with the shortest F1 career, Lawson, lasting only 2 races. To this, the current Racing Bulls driver said, "Yeah, why not? I am always ready. In Japan, yeah, 100%. I mean, their car is faster." Obviously, this is a very sensitive topic to be talked about in public, and that's why Yuki was pulled away from the mic right after saying this statement by a PR employee from the team. But nevertheless, the war of words have been officially started, and Lawson couldn't hold back his defense when talking about Tsunoda's promotion. The Kiwi driver feels like the time of his Japanese colleague and former teammate is gone, and that he showed far more times that he was able to beat him in lower categories, even though that might not matter at all right now. Elaborating further on whether he feels like Tsunoda should be in a seat, Lawson said, "Tsunoda can say what he wants, to be honest. I raced against him for years in the junior categories and I beat him, and I did that in F1 as well. He can say what he wants, but it's obviously extremely tough. It's not something I enjoy, and I am honestly working as hard as I can. You can't feel sympathy in this sport. I was teammates with him in F3 and I beat him. In Euro Formula, I was teammates with him in New Zealand and I beat him there. And then in F1 last season, I think honestly, if I look at the times he got promoted instead of me in those early years, then no, he doesn't deserve the promotion. He's had his time. Now it's my time." This is precisely what needs to be studied, the performance of both drivers outside of Formula 1 and in their F1 cars as well. Both of them have shown tremendous pace in a far less superior car. We can't act like Lawson didn't score points in Singapore in 2023 on a race that he drove for the first time in his career. We can't act like he didn't kick both of the Red Bull drivers out of Q2 by a small margin, but this is also a very short memory sport in which these deeds are often forgotten very quickly as soon as you start making mistakes. And truth be told, the problem might be in the car and not the driver. This is something that Christian Horner believes, because he's adamant that the only way Red Bull is keeping themselves right where they are is thanks to the preferences that Max has. However, if you were to ask any other driver on the grid, I highly doubt that they will be able to maneuver the car in the same way that the 4-time world champion does. Talking about the car's performance and how it affects the team's overall standings, Horner said, "Max is quite specific in what he wants from a car to make it fast, and that is generally a very positive front end on the car, a very sharp turn-in. Of course, the consequence of that is it will unsettle the rear of the car, and that, for a driver, is tremendously sapping if you've got a loose rear end on this car on entry into corners. So that is where he excels. That's where he's able to live on a knife's edge of adhesion. And this is precisely why we were stating that it might not be up to Tsunoda to prove that he is a super talent that Red Bull is missing out on. If you look at what is happening in the past couple of years, you can see that drivers like Gasly and Albon were able to find their home outside of Red Bull's family, even though their performance in the Austrian team was truly demotivating to watch. Nevertheless, just because they weren't able to adapt to a certain type of car, it doesn't automatically mean that they are not good drivers. This is why more time needs to be given to Lawson. However, the Kiwi driver does know that he's driving for a team who doesn't appreciate time as a factor, and there are numerous examples of that. The latest one was in 2023, where after 10 races, the team decided to drop Nick de Vries from AlphaTauri because he was crashing the car too much and was bringing zero value to the team whatsoever. They could have easily taken on the entire season with him, but they wanted to give an opportunity to Ricciardo, who also got dropped 6 races before the end of the 2024 season in such a shameful way, without even providing him with the opportunity of saying goodbye, and brought Lawson to be measured against Tsunoda. Be that as it may, it seems like the Kiwi driver could be next on the list, especially if we're to look at the statements from Helmut Marko when it comes to the performance of Tsunoda and Hadjar. A very interesting fact is that Marko has gone on to praise Tsunoda, the driver who he said made a lot of mistakes not that long ago, stating that he made a massive leap compared to where he was last year. Furthermore, Marko added, Yuki changed his management and has been performing absolutely top-notch so far. He is in the form of his life and has made another quantum leap this year. Yuki is a different Yuki from the years before. He is more mature. It took a while, but now it looks like it's working. But what is even more worrying about Tsunoda is that the competition is not just Lawson, it's Hadjar as well. Even though his teammates after crash crying in Melbourne provoked a lot of anger from Marko, who labelled it as embarrassing, it seems like the tables have been flipped. The 81-year-old had nothing but praise for the Frenchman, and when talking about this to a greater extent, he went on to say that Hadjar is a true candidate for the seat in the Austrian team, adding, let's look at the positive. Isaac Hadjar, who has never driven on this track before, is setting incredible times in his second race, making no mistakes. Yuki is right behind him, but Yuki is in his 5th season, while Isaac is completely new, and then he sets such a time. So far, what he has shown is absolutely fascinating. In Australia, his performance was also sensational until the accident. It's happened to others. The sun and the shadow are close together, and we'll see what happens. And what we must not forget is that Franco Colapinto has also suddenly joined the chat, as Helmut Marko was seen leaving the Alpine hospitality during the Chinese GP. Even though the Argentinian driver made a lot of mistakes in Williams and crashed the car on many occasions, he did score points on his second try in Baku, something similar to what Lawson has done in 2023. The connection between these two has been standing for quite some time, so it's a big challenge for Tsunoda, who will be in serious trouble if he misses out on this opportunity. If the Japanese driver doesn't land a seat in the Austrian team, or manages to land it but performs poorly, then it's safe to assume he'll be sacked, and the only chance he'll have is Cadillac. Unfortunately for him, the circumstances won't be aligning, because he'll be coming from a poor stint with Red Bull. With all this in mind, who do you think is a legitimate candidate for the second seat in Red Bull? And more importantly, do you think that there is an opportunity for Colapinto to join the family of the Austrian team? Let us know in the comments below.